I forgot the mic. Okay. Hi, welcome on this cold Sunday afternoon. Thank you for coming out. My name's Amy McDonald, and I'm the director of CitySpace. About a year ago, CitySpace got an NEA grant to highlight 8 up-and-coming artists in Boston, and I immediately thought of Jonah Ellsworth. I knew Jonah when he was a boy. He performed with some Shakespearean-inspired vignettes and some former colleagues and I put together. And at the time, I just remember his composure and the beauty of his playing. And now he's a young man, not a boy, and he is an up-and-coming Boston artist. Some of the descriptions for Jonah, he's been described as, quote, a player to watch, someone who has technical mastery, imagination, passion, deep feeling, fearless, a young man on the verge of an international career. Watch out, Yo-Yo Ma. This afternoon, we are going to hear Jonah play Bach's Third Suite in C major. It's about 25 minutes. And then Christopher Lydon will join him on the stage for about 20 to 30 minutes to talk Bach's Cello Suites. If you have any questions, please go to slido.com and type in ones to watch, hashtag ones to watch, lowercase, all one word, and we'll feed your questions to Chris, and we'll get to as many as we can. Christopher Lydon is the host of Open Source on WBUR. It airs Thursday nights at 9 p.m., Sundays at 2 p.m. now. You can also go back and watch any of the shows, archival shows. Chris is the ideal interlocutor for this hour. He is the most erudite, educated, passionate, curious person I've ever met, and I should know because I was a producer for Chris back in the day when he was the host of The Connection on WBUR. I also encourage you to, if you love Bach and his cello suites, go back to Open Source Archives, May 2020. Chris has an interview with Yo-Yo Ma that is sublime. It's so worth listening to. With no further ado, and then I'll come back up and just remind you at the end at 3 o'clock, we welcome you to the lobby where we're going to have a reception with coffee and tea cakes and cookies, and Chris and Jonah will be here to speak with you. Jonah, take it away.
I've known this boy since he was in his mom's tum, and it's always overwhelming. I mean, the challenge. What are words after that? Incredible. Let's give it a shot. Jonah, you took us so many places in the last half hour. I don't know where to begin, but I hope I'm not alone in wondering what is that young man going through? What's he thinking, or is he lost in space? Or are you worried about remembering notes? Or are you thinking about your fingers? Did I say thank you for the whole thing?
Oh, no, yeah, of course. I mean, Bach is hard. Bach is just... I think it's crazy how, you look at the score for Bach and it doesn't look that hard, right? Especially for a solo cello, there are not that many double stops or chords or, but why is it so hard? Why, and you talked earlier about the show you did with Yo-Yo and how he said that Bach is like your uncle or aunt that loves you but is very objective, very honest with you. That's exactly right. You can't fake it. Can't fake it.
I'm so glad you started with just saying outright, it's hard. There are chords, there are voices. I always forget how many voices come into a solo cello piece. You're accompanying yourself sometimes. You're harmonizing with yourself. There are dueling voices even at some moments. That seems to me impossible, to keep track of those voices. But also you added, I heard grace notes in the first bourrée there that I'd never heard before.
Yeah,
is that you or is that Bach?
No, well, it's neither. I go to Yale now and I study with an amazing cello teacher and Paul Watkins, who's in the Emerson Quartet, and he, I was preparing for a competition and I said, Paul, I think I need to add some embellishments, Wow. And he just said, oh, why don't you do this?
Remind us what we're talking about, specifically those brrrt.
Yeah, so it was in the bourrée, right? Instead of arpeggio, do a scale instead. And that's kind of the amazing thing about Bach is it seems like the options are endless. And you talk about how Yo-Yo recorded it 3 times because it changes every time. And
he changes. Oh, it's over what, 30, 40 years?
right.
Yeah. I want to. I asked Yo-Yo. I said to Yo-Yo at some point, but I don't think you musicians, and specifically solo cellists, get enough credit as athletes. Partly because we hear it as music and emotion and dreaming or whatever it takes us to, but every sound effect comes of a very studied physical discipline.
Right.
It's hands on the strings and on the bow that do it. It takes endless practice. But I said, it's like, funny, I think Yo-Yo liked the notion, the athleticism of it, the fact that it's a physical stunt. And he immediately went to Larry Bird and that sense of endless afternoons in a young boy's life shooting threes. I mean, it takes infinite practice, consideration, getting to know the limits, but the extent of what he can do. Speak about that. I mean, do you ever think of it as like a trapeze act?
Yeah, I mean, I think that sports and music have so much in common. I'm a huge sports fan, and
a basketball player of sorts, as I remember, right?
I used to play a little bit, but I stopped because of fingers. But I was reading this book that Kobe Bryant, the late great Kobe Bryant, wrote, and this is slightly off topic, but he talks about how he said in the book, I loved getting hit. I loved going to the paint and literally getting hit in the face, and he loves that feeling. And I really connected to that quote because I feel like if you want to play music, you have to love getting in that practice room by yourself for hours, get in your head, and yeah, probably negative thoughts will come, and it's like you have to love that. And sometimes I feel like being in the practice room is the best part of my day.
Wow.
And it's like I'll be talking to people, and I just want to be in the practice room right now. I mean, this is not like this, but I don't wish right now I was in the practice room, but it's we'll be watching Netflix. Oh, I just want to be in the that feeling, because I feel safe when the door closes and you're just in your head. That feels like a safe zone. And yeah.
What is the business of refining a sound and practicing a certain touch in either hand to get to a space that maybe nobody's been to before, or a sound that maybe there's nobody, or maybe that Yo-Yo can't even do?
I guess I don't
demonstrate that if you
Yeah,
if you
I guess
want.
I don't think, okay, I got to do something that nobody else did. But, for example, like in the prelude. Like how much are you going to decay on that note, right? Are you going to, where are you going to be, are you going to be close to the bridge? Are you going to be close to the fingerboard? What kind of, are you going to have flat hair? Are you going to point the bow? So I guess I don't think of it like that, but instinctually, okay, let's go for something unique.
It's fascinating. You immediately went to a moment in that note in the bass that I was listening to very carefully, and it struck me as you were playing. And then again, that's part of the accompaniment of the melody, so to speak, but you did it so, I mean, it's not that it's never been done that way, although maybe that's true, but that there's a huge effect there. That just wow, I'm hearing voices, I'm hearing complexity and considered delivery.
Right.
It's amazing. We will be taking questions, but I've got a few more. I'd love you to speak in a general way, if you can, about these suites. Strikes me, there's nothing in the world like them. As a solo performance piece, you can hear the whole thing, all 6 of them, in roughly 2 hours. Yo-Yo has performed them around the world. It comes across eventually, and even as you do it, as a statement of some sort. The only thing I can imagine comparable to it is all 150 of the Shakespeare sonnets. That would make a wonderful, great actor's evening. I'm going to do them all from beginning to end. But that, unfortunately, has the limitation of language. Not everybody can understand the English. So this stands alone as a kind of incredibly personal, melodic. It's dark, it's bright, it's sunny, it's desperate, it's us. How do you do it? And what is it about? Is there a story here? We know there are dances here.
Right.
Are you conscious of that while you're playing? Is there a story being told?
I think it's definitely a story. Going back to how difficult it is, because it's 6 movements, and you start the prelude, and it's almost like, oh damn. It's like you're hiking up a really tall mountain, and for anybody who knows the piece, I messed up a few times here and there, because I remember you talked about the Yo-Yo has his master class on YouTube, and the line that you talked.
How many people have seen, especially on YouTube, Yo-Yo doing his master class or promoting his master class? Anybody seen that? Oh, well, yeah. I must have seen it 20 times without asking to, but we'll get to it. What were you going to say?
No, and how he says at the very beginning that he used to want to be perfect, and then he was performing, and he realized it was going perfectly, and he was just so bored.
Bored out of his mind, he said. Right.
And I mean, Yo-Yo is like God, so, but I get what he's saying, trying to go for perfection, it's not going to work. And
that was such a complex thing for him to say, partly because he's known as he says he was playing it perfectly, and he was bored out of his mind. And that was a turning point in his life, he said, when he decided it's not about perfection, it's about expression.
Right.
And I thought, that's a great line. And then I thought, wait a sec, he's known as Mr. Expression. I mean, you see him there, solo or accompanied, and he's living, dying, bleeding, leaping. It's a total statement from him. And what does he mean? He never played he never ever sounded like a mechanical perfection.
No.
So it must have been very early in his life when he figured that out.
Right.
But how do you apply that? This tension between getting it perfectly and getting the point across.
Yeah, I think it's tough because obviously there are many competitions out there, and to win a big competition, you need some perfection. And so it's not to say that, perfection's not important, consistency is not important. That's not what I'm saying. But if you can combine consistency with expression, then you have something special. There's a lot on both sides. There are perfect players, there are expressive players, but not a lot right there. But like Yo-Yo's in there. I mean, the greats are in the middle there.
Are you ever conscious of making a choice, even in a passage or a particular part of these pieces, that doesn't have to be perfect, but I got to get the message out. I've got to reveal myself. I've got to reveal people to themselves.
I think that sending a message is more important. I think making a statement, being honest, is more important than hitting the notes. I don't think a lot of people would argue that. You know, when you love music and when you feel it very deeply, it's really hard to hit all the notes and be perfect, because those emotions can get in the way of that. I have a friend, his name is Immo Yang. He's a violinist, and he grew up in Korea, and he won many competitions. And he once said something that is maybe the sad truth, which is that if you want to be technically perfect, hit all the notes, you have to sacrifice musicality. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. It's a good skill to have, but I don't know if I'm there yet. Yeah.
I want to come back to this matter, this guy, this man, Johann Sebastian Bach. Yo-Yo said being with Bach is like hearing from your uncle and aunt. But I want to hold that for a moment and remind you that questions are welcome.
Chris, I have a couple of questions from the audience that I can just say now if you want me to.
Please.
Okay, and also remind them, if you have questions, slido.com and then #ones2watch, all one word, lowercase. You kind of already touched on it. One of the audience questions was, I hear the dance. Are we supposed to be dancing? And the second question is, are you aware of the audience when you're performing, or do we disappear? Those are...
I think you can dance. I guess it's not socially acceptable to get up and start dancing during the performance, but I think inside you should be dancing. In terms of the audience, this is something that teachers talk about a lot, that I still have work to do, which is maybe acknowledging the audience a bit more. I know Yo-Yo is like the master at playing for people. Somebody once said that I'm good at playing for myself, which, you know, I thought...
Somebody said that about you?
Yeah, like that, oh, you bring people to you instead of bringing it out. And so this is something that I still need to work on, pushing the music out to the audience. It's also a little bit hard because we haven't been performing for like 2 years. This is the first solo performance in front of an audience like this in a long time. So.
Can I say though, just as a listener, I rate you very, very high on the expression side of life and talking to your audience. And I feel you're playing very, very powerfully. I'm thinking of a foray piece with piano that you played close up, and I melted Yo-Yo, Jonah. I mean, it was incredibly personal and emotional and moving, and I thought, that's the degree. I mean, Nabokov says about literature, about anything, it's sort of, there's a point between your shoulder blades, and the important stuff registers there. And that's what a writer is looking to do, but also surely a performer. And you're distinctly in the overwhelmingly individual feeling kind of artist for me. So that's that.
Thank you.
There's another question. Amy, did you want to speak that too?
Hang on. Okay, sorry, in case it's not showing up. Jonah, what's the story behind your cello and how you found it, who made it? And the second is, one usually thinks of cello music as sad, as it's written in minor keys. The Bach pieces seem more uplifting. Were they written in major keys, right? Some major, some minor. Anyway,
Yeah.
those are the two questions. Where'd you get your cello? And the Bach, the sadness in the Bach.
So this cello is from 1801. It's from England, made by William Forrester Jr. This cello was generously bought by a sponsor, and the older I get, the more I appreciate playing this, because you look around and not everybody's playing a beautiful instrument like this, and so it's English cello. It's not Italian. It's not. Next stop is Italian, but it's a beautiful cello. And in terms of the keys of Bach's cello suites, so keys 1, 3, 4, and 6 are in major. Suites 1, 3, 4, and 6 are major. Keys 2 and 5 are in minor. So I guess that they do, as a whole, have more of an uplifting quality. Interesting.
Can I go back to one point on the dancing? Yo-Yo talked about that too. He had played these suites all around the world, and there were countries in which people did get up and dance. It's a kind of cultural thing. I think we're terribly inhibited about, in our tradition of symphonic music, people don't get up and dance, or they don't even cheer after individual, virtuosic moments in performance. I'm not sure we've got it right yet. I think the idea of people responding as they do to big bands. I mean, the Jimmy Lunceford band, the great jazz big bands waited. That was a test to sort of, when would people jump out of their seats because they couldn't sit down through this music? And they had won when that happened.
Yeah.
You think of that famous moment with Duke Ellington at Newport, and the woman in the white dress dancing through Paul Gonsalves's 26 choruses, diminuendo and crescendo. But it was a great, great moment when somebody said, "I got to dance," and I would hope you'd be tickled and pleased that you had made that happen.
Yeah, that would be great. Make me less nervous.
Come back to Bach himself.
Yeah.
Those manuscripts, a lot of them, the sacred ones, often have Jesu Juve at the top. Jesus, help me. He's nervous too. But what have you got to know about this man who was on deadline for church music every week? He wrote these incredibly considered various things, solo pieces. God knows the keyboard music is incredible. Talk about this guy. You've gotten pretty close to him over those years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the scholar, and so I don't want to sit up here and say, oh yeah, he wrote this in 17 and he wrote it here, and but obviously Bach was very religious, and I guess people would probably say that, these suites are kind of, I think I once heard Misha Maisky, the cellist, say that this is our Bible. And then my teacher at NEC, Lawrence Lesser, who probably many of you have heard of, said that there are two types of pieces that we play: pieces that need us and pieces that we will never get good enough. And this set of suites is music that we will never be able to perfect, because it's better than us. And so I think there's that spiritual quality to the music, for sure.
Pianists say things like that. And I remember Daniel Barenboim was referring to the two books of the Well-Tempered Clavier, these preludes and fugues in every key, major, minor, a whole catalog of stuff. But they refer to the first book as the Old Testament and the second book as the New Testament. It is spiritual, it's philosophical, it's utterly confoundingly virtuosic, but also some kind of prayer too.
Yeah. I don't want to bring it back to sports.
Do it.
But
Kobe Bryant.
Kobe Bryant, I'm sure many of you know there's the Michael Jordan documentary on Netflix.
Let's hear it.
And sometimes I think about, like how I started, why is Bach so challenging? When you look at the music, it doesn't look that challenging. But, you take a piece of music that was written in 2021, you can't even read it, and one would probably say, oh, yeah, the modern music is much more difficult, but maybe not. And I relate it back to sports because it feels like playing Bach is like shooting like free throws at the end of a game. Like the game's on the line and nobody's blocking your shot. It's just you in the rim. Can you hit that free throw? And I think that's why there are so many great, athletes basketball players who have trouble with those late game free throws because it's like, it's quiet in there, I'm guessing you could, also I thought about putting in golf. I don't play golf, but you watch it on TV. How come those guys are missing all those putts, It looks pretty easy. It's clearly not. And so it's like almost the simpler it is, the harder it gets.
I love the sports connection. I'm just thinking as you speak. Bach, the Well-Tempered Clavier, every combination of keys and rhythms and feeling, but he had to do it complete. But that also reminds me of, again, athletes, somebody like Michael Jordan. They set it on themselves to not only to win the game, but to do it with a certain style. Larry Bird, you can see this on YouTube. I don't recommend it entirely. You'll never get away from it. But Larry Bird would want to hit a shot from every corner of the floor, just to make it harder for himself. And then there was one game in which he told one of his teammates, only left-handed tonight. I'm going to do all my shots left-handed. And he's not left-handed. And he did. I think he scored 37 points. But there's this kind of completeness.
Right.
It's got to all add up.
If you can play Bach at high level or convincing level, I think you can play anything. Literally anything. I mean, Beethoven's up there too. I always say that like Bach, Beethoven, and Brahms, you have to give that extra hour of practice. You could think, oh, I got it. No, because then in a concert, it'll get you. It'll get you.
Are there any more questions before we wrap?
Okay.
I just want to say, Jonah, what a joy it is to watch your growth, and listen to your sound, know how hard it is. I didn't quite know how hard it is, but you've told us flat out, and we know why. But it's just a joy to see you grow, and you're just well begun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all for coming. We will have a reception out in the lobby, and Chris and Jonah will be hanging out. So if there are any questions we didn't get to, I'm sure they'll answer them. Our next in our Ones to Watch series is Veronica Robles on March 31st. She's an all-women mariachi band. So she's the next one in our grant to watch. But thank you, Jonah. This has been such a precious afternoon.